Hong Kong, after 156 years, the end of an empire. The last of the great British colonies handed back to China at the stroke of midnight. A historic celebration with royalty, presidents, and a powerful army. A reminder that China now is one country, two systems. It was a time of excitement and sadness and uncertainty. But in Tiananmen Square, the heart of the People's Republic of China, a sense of triumph and settling old scores. The one great question tonight, will China keep its word and let Hong Kong's people and its economy remain free?
From NBC News, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Reporting tonight from Hong Kong.
Good evening from Hong Kong, where it is already Tuesday morning. It is a dark and stormy Tuesday morning, and we've had a lot of power problems during the night here at NBC News. But China is a great deal richer this morning. It now has Hong Kong for its personal bank account, a communist regime fully in control of one of the great money machines in the world. That alone makes China a much more powerful player in the coming 21st century. And in the handover of control from Britain to China, the day was long in symbolism, tradition, and ultimately reality. The reality backed up by these 4,000 Chinese army troops coming into Hong Kong from China that Beijing sent here to signal it's in charge now. In the end, the transfer went swiftly and smoothly. This was the end of the day, the stroke of midnight. The British Union Jack comes down, the red flag of China goes up. The British began their departure with their final governor, Chris Patten, and his family leaving the official residence. Just about the time China's president, Jiang Zemin, was arriving to claim his new city. As British troops were leaving their barracks for a final time, the British naval base became a parade ground for the kind of ceremony they have played out around the world. It's called the Sunset Pageant.
Britain is part of Hong Kong's history, and Hong Kong is part of Britain's history.
Now the pace quickened as the clock moved toward midnight. Flags were exchanged. Spectators joined bagpipers in Auld Lang Syne. The British fireworks came tonight. Tomorrow the Chinese display, expected to be 3 times as large. And even before midnight, China was moving army troops across the border, the first of 4,000. Hong Kong's new leaders insist they will not be used against protesters. In the convention hall, it was a subdued, stately evening before this memorable sight. The eldest son of the Queen of England leading his country's delegation, and Jiang Zemin heading the parade of Chinese leaders, including Li Peng, the premier who sent the troops onto the students at Tiananmen Square. But Jiang wanted everyone to know that Hong Kong's special place is assured.
Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong and a high degree of autonomy.
Then the flags and the celebration. Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong, China. Tung Chee-hwa, a shipping tycoon, was immediately sworn in as chief executive. Then it was time for the British to go. They had lost a great city, willingly, but they still had a yacht, the Britannia, carrying the prince and the governor, their family and friends, out of the harbor and across the seas, leaving behind a new flag, great anticipation, and an uncertain future. In Beijing, the massive gathering in Tiananmen Square celebrating the return of Hong Kong was a reminder of the other system. And NBC's Jim Maceda is there tonight. Jim, the weather's a lot better where you are.
Yeah, it's a lot better, Tom. But here, let me tell you that Beijing is celebrating this handover in typical communist Chinese fashion. It's a feast of lights, sounds, and airtight security. The countdown is over. At midnight, the 100,000 Chinese who filled Tiananmen Square, all carefully chosen by the ruling Communist Party, witnessed history. Hong Kong is again theirs. Among those savoring the moment, 23-year-old Zhang Jing, a student who volunteered to be here so she could one day recount her joy to her grandchildren.
Handover of Hong Kong is one of the most important things in this century, and today it is the moment that our Chinese people erase the disgrace of 150 years.
150 years of British rule. For weeks, a media blitz is played on that collective shame. A high-budget, Chinese-made film, The Opium War, draws packed houses. It depicts the doom struggle between outgunned Chinese heroes and British colonial villains. A loss finally reversed. At tonight's gala celebration, it was all pride and patriotism as spectators watched the handover in Hong Kong via satellite. A shining moment for the Communist Party that nothing was going to dampen. Thousands of plainclothes police and soldiers of the People's Liberation Army ringed the square, scene of the bloody crackdown in 1989 of the pro-democracy movement. The uninvited were told to stay home and watch the celebration on TV. The singing and dancing lasted until dawn, when China's flag routinely is raised on Tiananmen Square. But this morning, it rose on a new beginning. In a country where saving face means everything, having Hong Kong back means China can now show the world a picture of strength. But many wonder how different this is from the face shown so brutally on this very square 8 years ago. Tom?
Thanks, Jim Maceda, tonight in Beijing. I'll have more news when we come back. The president weighs in on cutting taxes and Mike Tyson's explanation for his latest shocking behavior.
Thank you for coming.
The whole Asia-Pacific region is absolutely booming, and Prudential Asia, being headquartered in Hong Kong, is right in the midst of it. The people that we have are from the region, and frankly know most of the players in the region. It has never really been done on a systematic basis in which we've channeled money from the West to invest in private equity in Asia, and Prudential Asia is the pioneer in doing this.
You know, AT&T is making things simple now, even when you're away from home.
Did you say simple even when you're away from home?
Yeah, just dial 1-800-CALL-ATT.
Why not just dial 0?
Can't be sure who you'll get.
So, 1-800-CALL-ATT.
That's the guaranteed way of knowing you're getting AT&T.
Calling card calls?
Sure.
Collect calls?
All your calls.
Long distance calls?
Yeah.
Even local calls?
All calls.
Bird calls?
I didn't think of that.
1-800-CALL-ATT. When you're on the go, it's the only number you need to know.
You did your job, you did it well, you gave your all and it was swell, and now it's fun time, fun in some time, on making whoopee.
The brand new DeVille for the time of your life.
Professional boxing will never be confused with polite behavior, but Mike Tyson's outrageous behavior in his fight against Evander Holyfield was so gross, so stunning, so inexcusable, even President Clinton felt compelled to condemn it. NBC's Jim Avila has the latest on the bite that rocked a sport.
It is already known as the worst night in the history of boxing, and Mike Tyson now admits the worst in his career.
For an athlete in the heat of battle to suddenly lose it, it's not new, but it's not right.
It was a deliberate foul. Mike Tyson, the fighter who likes to call himself the baddest man on the planet, admits he purposely took aim and bit the ear of heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield. And after a warning, bit him again.
I just snapped. Evander, I'm sorry. You're a champion. I respect that.
Tyson's nervous plea for forgiveness comes after repeated calls to ban him from the ring.
He left the ring being pelted by garbage, and he's now the most hated man in boxing.
Tyson, the dominant boxer of the late 80s, is a criminal on parole, forced to check in with his parole officer once a month after serving 3 years in an Indiana prison for the rape of a teenage beauty contestant. Tyson's parole officer says he's now threatened with at least tighter supervision.
I think his particular type of behavior in the ring and out of the ring is something that is severe, and we need to deal with.
The biting may be less troubling legally than what happened after the fight was stopped. An enraged Tyson tried several times to resume the brawl and could be seen swinging at Las Vegas police trying to restrain him. So far, no criminal charges have been filed against Tyson, and without a formal charge, a return to prison for the remaining 4 years of his rape sentence is doubtful. Some think it may be the word no that Mike Tyson has so much trouble with. In the gym, he's fired a series of trainers. In his hotel room, he raped a beauty queen. And now in the ring, he bit a man who refused to bend to his will. And Tyson's uncontrolled rage in the ring left a bad impression at the White House.
As a fan, and I was horrified.
Former heavyweight champion Ernie Terrell was at the other end of a foul during his 15-round title fight with Muhammad Ali. He was poked in the eye, but never considered blatant retaliation.
It's like pulling a knife. I mean, you don't do that. You don't bite nobody. And that really hurt the sport.
For a sport constantly struggling for credibility, the bite was more damaging than any punch. And for Mike Tyson, threatens to change his legacy from feared boxer to tragic failure. Jim Avila, NBC News, Chicago.
In other news tonight, in Washington, President Clinton unveiled his own version of a tax cut plan. Last week, Republicans in the House and the Senate passed their versions, which the president said today they simply don't go far enough to help young people pay for college, and they're too favorable to the rich.
They direct far too little relief to the middle class. They include time-bomb tax cuts that threaten to explode the deficit. They do not do enough to keep our economy going.
Congressional negotiators are working now on a compromise between the House, Senate, and the president's version. It should be finished next month. And from Miami tonight, word of a Customs Service sting that raises some old fears. 2 immigrants from the former Soviet Union are accused of trying to sell high-quality military weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, to undercover agents. According to court documents, they even hinted that they could get their hands on nuclear weapons. When we come back, and trust me, that is Hong Kong back out there somewhere, the incredible shrinking British Empire. Once Britannia ruled the waves tonight, Hong Kong's passing, you won't believe how little is left of what put the great in Great Britain. But first, let's take a look at what happened in New York and Wall Street.
Why does Tums work so fast and Pepcid AC work so much slower? Because they work on heartburn in totally different ways. Tums Calcium naturally, rapidly neutralizes acid, so it works fast. Pepcid AC's famotidine has to travel through your bloodstream to block natural acid production, so it takes at least 40 minutes. So, why does Tums work so fast and cost so little, and Pepcid AC works so much slower and costs so much?
Maybe they charge by the hour.
Dear Thompsons, I restore 1,200 decks a year, and nothing works for me like Thompson's wood finish colors.
Natural wood tones block graying, plus the waterproofing power of Thompson's.
Thompson's isn't just great for decks, it's great for business. Mike Laterno.
Denture wearers, guess what? Polident can clean your dentures and fight denture odor in just 5 minutes. So Minty Polident cleans stains and fights denture odor this fast. Honey, try Polident, the only 5-minute denture soak.
Men, is gray hair sneaking up on you, right under your nose, making you look too old?
Whoa, it is sneaking up on me. Up here, too.
You need Just for Men gel, made for the hard-to-color gray of mustaches and sideburns. Simply brush in this no-drip gel, and in 5 minutes, rinse. Gray's gone. Your mustache and sideburns blend perfectly with your natural hair color.
That gray won't sneak up on me again.
Just for Men gel, the sure thing for a natural look.
Dateline Monday. She was a loving wife.
We loved each other's company.
But when she was found dead, the mystery began. What role did her husband play?
There's something about the night Myrna died that you never told police.
Correct.
An act of love or the perfect crime? Plus, what's next for Mike Tyson?
Dateline tonight
on NBC.
NBC News in depth tonight. The last gasp of the British Empire. Back in 1942, Winston Churchill swore that he would be the one who would not be the one who would preside over the liquidation of one of history's greatest empires. It spanned more than 300 years. It grew to encompass fully 1/4 of the world's landmass, including Canada, India, and Australia, and the control of 450 million subjects. But ever since Churchill's pledge, the empire has come apart bit by bit. Now there are just 13 British colonies left. Most of them are small islands with a total of just 200,000 subjects. Some of what's left of the empire is home to more penguins than people. Of course, Hong Kong was the last bastion of the empire of Churchill's era. Our in-depth report tonight from NBC's Keith Miller, the lowering of the Union Jack in the last great British colony.
As the sun rose for the last time over British Hong Kong, it was a day of mixed emotions for the soldiers who defended the empire. It was a day of farewells as the Black Watch, the garrison charged with defending Hong Kong, surrendered its post. And Lance Corporal Sandy Salmon gave Mei Lee, the base cleaning lady, a last kiss goodbye. It was a day of pride, too, for former Sergeant Jack Edwards, putting on medals earned defending the empire during the Second World War.
The pipes, of course, always sad because the pipes are
lamenting the loss of empire, a gradual unraveling with its own name, decolonization. Sometimes it has been violent, sometimes peaceful. In Hong Kong, it began with war. In 1841, Britain's first act on this island was hostile, seizing the territory as a base to sell opium to the Chinese. Over time, the colonial masters created a society organized around their own notions of British white superiority, dividing the rulers from the ruled. And for 80 years, the British barred the Chinese from living on Hong Kong's exclusive Victoria Peak. It was only in the world of business that the two sides would come together as equals. There was freedom to do business, but no democracy. The first elections weren't held here until 1985.
I know there's bad legacies. The snobbishness and some of the racial discrimination which has gone on here, which we've had to put up with. But I think on the whole, we got more pluses than negatives.
And for former Sergeant Jack Edwards, he'll be staying in Hong Kong. He's lived here for 50 years and is devoted to defending the memory of the 6,000 British servicemen buried here.
I'm not afraid of the flag coming down. I've seen the flag torn down. I've seen it spat upon and burnt before. And I've seen it go up again. So I shall have tears in my eyes when that flag comes down, but I'll have pride also.
Edwards learned the lyrics when Britannia still ruled the waves. The Black Watch Battalion caught a ride out today on a ferry, no longer ruling the waves or an empire that reached across the globe, a once vast empire that gave meaning to the name Great Britain. Keith Miller, NBC News, Hong Kong.
When we come back, Hong Kong's leading dissident. Will the strongest voices for democracy be silenced by China's hardline rulers?
It will not be snuffed out.
Hong Kong. It's part of an exciting new world that's growing so fast you never know where it's going to grow next. So with our worldwide reputation for meeting the toughest deadlines, we at Caterpillar aren't surprised to find ourselves involved in the world's largest construction project, Hong Kong's new airport. In the only place Hong Kong had room for it, the South China Sea.
Now there's a different kind of toothbrush dogs love sinking their teeth into. Pedigree Dentabone. Its unique shape and texture helps reduce the accumulation of harmful plaque and tartar. Pedigree Dentabone. Developed with vets. Recommended by top breeders.
Come on in.
Anybody home?
Sometimes the best reunions happen by chance.
We were hungry.
Now you can always be ready with the best Ziploc storage bag ever. New Ziploc Color Lock bags have the only color seal you can see and feel. So all the love you put in today comes out just as fresh tomorrow.
Great meal, Mom.
You got something I could take this home in?
I think I could find something.
New Ziploc brand Color Lock bags. Ziploc was made for tomorrow.
We had that last week. We had it last month.
No, we had that last week.
No, we did
and you
not have
liked
that
it,
last week.
and I
No.
made- Well, that I don't know what that is. Don't touch it.
Why put up with over-frozen food? Look at Maytag's new dual-cool refrigerator. Another great idea from Maytag, the dependability people.
Come on, ice cream for everyone.
Oh, none for me, thanks.
Why?
Dairy foods do a number on my stomach.
You lactose intolerant?
Huh?
You know, gas, bloating. I get it too, but it's no problem anymore. Try this.
Introducing Lactate Ultra. One little caplet just before eating lets you digest dairy foods easily and naturally.
Next time, let's go for milkshakes.
With a little Lactate Ultra on the side.
New Lactate Ultra. Go on, enjoy dairy again. Call 1-888-ULTRA now for a free sample.
As this new day comes to Hong Kong, and with it new rules from Beijing, the people who had worked hard to establish a real democracy during British rule still are at it. They're outraged that their political freedoms are being rolled back, and they have a soft-spoken but iron-willed leader. Shortly after the handover, Martin Lee, a prominent Hong Kong politician and the city's best-known Democratic activist, held a goodbye rally with his supporters. At the stroke of midnight, they'd lost all power to Beijing.
We shall return.
Lee says he's proud Hong Kong is no longer a British colony. But he says the heavy-handed politics of the city's new boss, Tung Chee-hwa, has spoiled his celebration. Mr. Lee, Tung Chee-hwa says that there will be elections next year.
And we're supposed to be happy. If I were to come into your house, throw you out, throw your family out, and remain as a trespasser in it, how would you feel?
Lee's Democratic Party swept a victory in the last legislative council elections. It was supposed to be a 4-year term, but Beijing disbanded the elected council and handpicked one of its own.
For those who agree, please say yes.
In sessions held across the Chinese border, the unelected council already has passed laws making it impossible for the Hong Kong Democrats to win a majority.
The Democrats will find it very difficult to challenge the government within the existing institutions, and this will probably force them to resort to street protests and demonstrations sooner or later.
But under the new rules, demonstrations that jeopardize national security and social order are illegal. Besides, the new leaders say the people are more interested in housing and health care.
How does it benefit you if you are given better housing, better medical care, and so on, if you lose your freedom and find yourself in jail?
Are you prepared to go to jail?
Yes.
Do you think that you'll have to?
If necessary, we will resort to civil disobedience.
That could become the first major test of the Chinese government's Hong Kong strategy, what it calls one country, two systems. As history was being made here in Hong Kong tonight, a remarkable piece of American history has been uncovered in the deep waters of Lake Champlain. Divers have found the remains of a gunboat that was commanded by Benedict Arnold before he turned traitor. The wooden ship, dating back to the Revolutionary War, was found upright and remarkably well preserved. When we come back, the strong men who called the shots with the massacre in Tiananmen Square now take over Hong Kong. Can freedom and free markets survive together?
Another lovely
Well, I used to think all denture adhesives were the same until I tried Super Polygrip. And I found that works best for me because it works great. It keeps everything in place. Super Polygrip. Here's the proof.
The good news about eggs is piling up. Recently, the results of 224 studies conducted among 8,000 participants over the past 25 years were compiled by researchers at the University of Arizona. The conclusion? If you're healthy, enjoy your eggs. Your cholesterol probably will stay about the same. To get all viewpoints about eggs and cholesterol, talk to your doctor. The incredible edible egg.
We're asking baseball fans to try Wheaties, the breakfast of champions.
It's the first time I had them in a long time. They taste terrific. They're good. They really are. I'd get them.
Try the championship taste of Wheaties.
You better eat your Wheaties.
Do you ever just have one of those days? Well, at Farmers Insurance, everything we do is about getting things back to normal. Isn't that what insurance is supposed to do? Farmers, get you back where you belong.
Tonight at 6, after 37 years, a man is scheduled to die in Kentucky's electric chair tonight. We will have a live report and hear from people on both sides of the emotional death penalty issue. And after 37 years, executions may soon be happening again in Tennessee. We'll hear what your Nashville neighbors have to say about the issue at 6.
This very thick fog that has settled over Hong Kong is so appropriate on this first day of Chinese rule. It's very hard to see through it to the future. There is so much prosperity in Hong Kong and so much confidence with good reason. Many of the people here do believe that it will go on forever, well into the new century, what could become the Asian century. But it is worth remembering, at the beginning of this century, Britain was in its full colonial glory. China was then a feudal empire. Communism was just a theory. The United States was only a muscular teenager, and Hong Kong was an exotic backwater. For all of the good intentions and the reassuring words that were part of this day, there are no guarantees that Hong Kong has flourished because of great individual enterprise and parallel freedoms. Beijing's leaders have stayed in power because they cherish control and they are expert, often ruthless, at exercising it. At some point, sometime, something will have to give. How much and to what effect is the great test of this new union. But at least it is off to a colorful start with everything except the weather. I'll see you again from China tomorrow night. Now, more of this day.
Tomorrow and today, the 50th anniversary of Roswell. The military says there were no UFOs, but the real truth may be out there. So join us tomorrow and today.
Now on the scene at 6, a condemned inmate is looking at the final hours of his life. We will take you to Eddyville, Kentucky, where Harold McQueen awaits execution.
Tennessee also has a death penalty that hasn't been carried out in decades. We'll tell you where the state now stands on executions.
And how would you feel if prostitutes walked the streets of your neighborhood? We will hear from residents who say they are fed up with people hooked on the streets.